What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. Hope you guys are doing well. Tonight, it is February 17th. It is essentially the last night of NBA before the All-Star break. We're going to get into some of the top players that I think you should be adding over the next day or two before the All-Star break ends, and we get games starting, I think, back next Thursday. Let's first take a peek at the advanced schedule grid. So next Thursday, again, so tonight there's only 5 total games being played tonight. Next Thursday, that's when things are going to get tipped back off. So we'll come back to this and look at that. I did want to shout out some of the players in the news today. The big one, probably Anthony Davis, expected to miss at least the next 2 weeks. So we'll see. He's probably going to be a week out. Maybe week 19 we'll get, week 20 we'll get Anthony Davis back. RJ Barrett expected back after the break as well. So good news there. I didn't really see any other major headlines tonight. Kristaps Porzingis to make his Washington debut tonight. So that's a lot of fun. We got Aiden in the chat room. We got Justin here too. Yeah, Justice Winslow. The Blazers, man, the Blazers have been playing some really good basketball. So I think I want to look at some of the guys here on Portland and just kind of just the aftermath of all these trades. All of a sudden, there's some players here for Portland and a couple other teams that are starting to make sense as must adds for fantasy. So I wanted to start with Portland. And I'm just curious, how many games does Portland have in the back half of the next week? So this is a 2-week week. If we go to Portland here, they're going to get 2 games in the next, in the back half here. So nothing too crazy, but of course, Nurkic needs to be rostered. Lillard, we still won't see about that. And Fernie Simons needs to be rostered. He's only 58% rostered. If you play in 10-man leagues, 8-man leagues, there's a chance that he's out there. He's actually been putting up a ton of points. Let's look at what Simons, the last 3 games, over 42 fantasy points, 3 straight games over 30. He had a 29-point game in there. So scoring is up dramatically. Assists are usually up there pretty high too. But you see consistency now from Simons here. So he is, Simons is starting to put together a really nice stretch here before the All-Star break. And again, next week they only play 2 games. But I was looking at what this team did the other night here. Who did they destroy last night? I think it was I can't go back. I can't remember who they played last night, but let's click on, I want to click on Josh Hart because he's only 50% rostered. So here you go. This is a player that we probably need to get a little bit higher in the roster department. So 3 games currently with the Trailblazers here, a 38, a 48, and a 21. The minutes are up there pretty significantly. The points have been over 20 3 straight times. The assists are there, steals and blocks. But I just want to show you guys the box score from last night's game against a really good Grizzlies team. And we're going to take a peek here and see what the Trailblazers have been doing with their new unit. Justice Winslow, we'll get to him in a second there, but he comes in, gets 33 minutes. Nurkic gets 34. Josh Hart gets 37. Simons gets 34. CJ Ellaby, interesting player. We'll look at him as well. He didn't shoot the ball very well last night, 0 for 6 total, 31 minutes though. And then off the bench, you see Ben Mclemore. And then not sure what to expect from some of these other players here, but we'll take a peek here at Mclemore. We'll look at Ellaby. We'll look at Justice Winslow coming up. But yeah, Josh Hart, only 50% roster. Josh Hart needs to be owned at this point. And then Justice Winslow, only 12% roster. I think if you play in 10 or 12-man leagues, this is probably your last chance to get a Justice Winslow. Over the last 7 games, he's been averaging, let me see if I can filter that. Over the last 7 games, Justice Winslow averaging 35 fantasy points per game here. And since he got with the Trailblazers, he's been basically a starter for the most part of it. But some double-double potential here. He's been over double digits in 5 of 6 games here. And he's a 5-category player. He can get steals and get blocks. Just your last chance to get a player of this caliber that I think is going to help people win some fantasy championships this year. So Portland not going away yet. Let's see what else we got here. Nasir Little, Dennis Smith Jr. Let's take a peek at Ben Mclemore. He's averaging 20 fantasy points per game over the last 7 days, and we know that trade kind of happened right around here. And I'm not sure we're interested yet. Maybe in 12 or 14-man leagues, this is something to take note of. But if he's going to consistently get 20-plus minutes per game here, you look at these last 6 games or so, all over 20 minutes. His lowest output was, 15, 16, 17. So we're gonna monitor that. I'm interested in seeing if he can get a little bit better here. CJ Ellaby, the other guy, getting some starter minutes. a lot of minutes over the last 5 games. So getting a huge opportunity here, but not really doing too much. I think this is just a watch list guy for now. He did pop off against Orlando and the Lakers for a couple games. So good rebounding shooting guard here. And then let's see. We got Aiden saying Greg Brown. Let's check out Greg Brown here. So this guy, highly productive with his minutes. I like seeing that. You see the big game against Orlando. So if he starts creeping up there in minutes, if he starts getting 20-some minutes per game, this is a player that you might want to put on the watch list. So I'm interested there. Elijah Hughes got some minutes, and Trendon Watford, they're averaging 17 points over the last few games. So I like what I'm seeing so far. The Blazers have about 4 or 5 players that should be rostered on teams here. So we'll leave that at that, and let's go take a look at some of the other new teams that I'm keeping an eye on here. Let me get caught up on the stuff here. So Aiden says not basketball related, but for football. ETN next year. I was watching some Doug. Hold on, that's cut off. I was watching some Doug. Yeah, they're gonna run the football, man. That's what they want to do. They want to put Trevor Lawrence into some good positions, and I'm gonna start cranking out some football videos soon here. I'm actually prepping on some things right now and getting my website kind of re-updated and some more stats and things together. But I'm excited for the Jags. I think it's going to be a really interesting draft for them. So we'll get into some NFL. I think starting in a week or two. And there's Simons. Yep. I'm losing because I have PG and Dame. Oh man. Don't sleep on my boy CJ. He pisses me off, but he hustles. CJ is interesting. If you tell me he's going to continue to get these minutes, I would like to think eventually, he'll start to kind of eliminate these 9.5 games. But again, Memphis has really good guard play, so it's not going to surprise me that he struggled to shoot in that one. So we'll keep an eye on CJ Ellaby. He might be a guy that we come back to at some point. And obviously trying to get involved. They drew up some a lot of plays, and Nurkic injury prone. Nurkic is interesting. So yeah, keep your eye on Greg Brown here. I don't know who the backup, like a true backup center would be for them, but we'll keep an eye on it. But there's another team that I wanted to pull up the NBA scores from last night. We'll probably get into some of the games tonight too, but I thought last night was very interesting. That was Wednesday evening because there's a couple teams that have been catching my eye. The Celtics have been an interesting team. They've been on that mad win streak. So maybe let's take a peek here at the Celtics because they did acquire some guys here before the trade deadline, and so did the Pistons. The Pistons, who did they end up getting here? They ended up getting Marvin Bagley. So Bagley's in here getting some minutes. That's good to see. 23 minutes for him. Hopefully he can get that sustained. But for the Celtics, something to keep an eye on, they gave Robert Williams the night off. So Al Horford got the start. Any night that Al Horford is getting the start, you want to get him in your DFS or your fantasy lineups. But Derek White inserted into the starting lineup, 36 minutes, 3 of 10 as a shooter, but 6 boards, 6 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks, 9 points. So Derek White fitting right into what the Boston Celtics want to do. And then they added Daniel Tice here as well. So Tice, 16 minutes. Again, this is with no Robert Williams, so I don't know what Tice's actual value is going to be. But in 16 minutes, he gets 3 boards, 2 steals, and 4 points. So something to keep an eye on there as the Celtics are a team to watch that I think are going to impress the people going forward. But Pistons still kind of remain a work in progress, but they're able to steal one. An interesting game here at Boston too. Let's go back here and look. We're going to get our way to the Hornets. I think they're down on the schedule here. Who did they play last night? I can't recall. Did they play last night? They did not play last night. But the teams that I wanted to talk about, it's okay. So like, if you guys watch my stuff, you guys know I love garbage teams because that's usually where the fantasy stuff is at down the stretch. So the Pacers and the Wizards. Wizards are very interesting. Kuzma has been a beast. So if you have Kuzma, you're feeling really good. He gets 15 rebounds last night, 6 assists, 26 points. So he's fantastic. 27 shot attempts. Interesting. Not a great efficiency night, but he did go off from 3. But some guys that are interesting here. Let's actually go ahead and we'll go back to this side of things. I wanted to look at the last 7 days for our Washington Wizards because Kuzma, Avdija still playing really well here. He's averaging 28 points per game over the last 7 games. This is the player that I think only 3.7% roster, but you look at the minutes over the last 4 games, you see a trend of him hanging about over 40 or over 30 minutes per game, 4 straight games of double digits. A really good rebounder when he can get on the glass. But he's kind of a 5 category player. He can get assists, he can get steals, and he can get blocks. And you just look, 5 straight games over 20 fantasy points. I think this is a player here. You're going to see a lot of Denny down the stretch here. I like getting him, the guy in my league here, really savvy move by Dalton to get Denny on his team. But again, the Wizards and the Pacers, these are going to be guys that are going to be playing their young players the rest of the way. So Denny averaging 28 points per game. If that sounds interesting, you should go ahead and take a look at him. And I think, let me see, the Wizards, next week they only have 2 games, so that's fine. But KCP averaging 27.6 points per game over the last 7 days. Raul Nato, and I actually added Nato for tonight because they're playing against Brooklyn. And Nato, the last 4 games, kind of the same thing as Denny here. Over the last 4 games, you see them have to try new lineups as they kind of blew up their team at the trade deadline. But out of 4 games here, the low of 19, a high of 30. I like the chances for at least 20 to 25 fantasy points from Raul Nato. And if he's going to be getting starter minutes, he's a player that has been pretty productive, very good assist man. He does get some steals occasionally too. So he's a 4 category player. I like Raul Nato. Thomas Bryant here, if you do need center help, he's averaging 24.5 points per game over the last 7 games. Not the best outings the last 2 nights here. And it remains to see what's going to happen with Porzingis. I believe we said Porzingis is going to play at some point tonight. So we will see what happens to Bryant here. So I'm waiting to see what happens there. Ish Smith, Rui Hachimura, we'll see what happens. But both of those guys are averaging more than 20 fantasy points per game lately. And then Corey Kispert averaging 19.3. So there's some interesting names there on the Washington Wizards side. Again, we're going to wait and see what happens with our guy Porzingis. His debut is tonight. So excited for that. And then let's go look at the Pacers. And again, the Pacers impressed me because I was able to watch them against the Bucks the other night. Like Buddy Hield put up a lot of points, and they were able to keep the Bucks, on their toes. But the Pacers, this is what they're. I mean, they ran 8 players out on the floor last night. Starting here with Jalen Smith, not the best night statistically, but interesting for fantasy. Shea Burst, we'll look at him. Halliburton, of course. Buddy Hield should be owned, and then Terry Taylor, probably a player that I'm interested the rest of the way. Tristan Thompson, if he's going to be doing this good, he's going to be a guy that we're going to want to talk about. You got Dwayne Washington Jr. and Lance Stevenson here. So Goga, Duarte, there's some interesting players here on the Pacers. So let's go ahead and filter by the last 7 days. And as you see here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players averaging more than 20 fantasy points per game. So let's start at the top. Tyrese Halliburton, he's already rostered. You guys know this, but he's fitting in nicely. I like the fit with the Pacers. The fantasy numbers are looking really good here. Not really much changed from the Kings. So Halliburton's on track. But Buddy Hield has been a guy that's seeing an increase of usage, minutes, points. Everything is up. If you look at what he was kind of doing before the trade deadline, like he could barely top 20 fantasy points. And then in 4 games with the new Pacers look here, he's been basically over 30 points in all the games here. So the minutes are almost up to 37, 40 minutes per game. Scoring is through the roof here with that Bucks game, and just chipping in nicely. So I like Buddy Hield, 86% rostered. But Shea Burst and Terry Taylor, 2 names that you're going to want to know down the stretch here. Shea Burst, a power forward here. He's 11% rostered, but he's averaging 33.8 fantasy points per game over the last 7 days. And he's been on a nice little run here. He did have a hiccup at Milwaukee, 11.75, but the other games in this stretch, 35, 46, 41. You see big double-double potential here, 22 and 13, 18 and 11. He's going to get you blocks. He's going to get steals every now and then, and he's usually good for an assist or 2. So his numbers last 5 games through the roof here. Shea Burst, this is a player that he got a lot of run, if I remember correctly, at the end of last year. And he impressed me. Now he's doing so again. But this is the player here, Terry Taylor. He's actually a more of a big. How tall is Terry Taylor? Because he's listed as a shooting guard, but he's actually more of a power forward or kind of like a 3-4. He's a 6'5" player, and he's a rebounding freak. You can see he got some opportunity opportunity here late in January. And then when he got into the starting lineup, he blew up for a few games, got his minutes reduced. And now he's getting thrusted back into some 30 minutes potentials here. So 10-9, 18-9, really good rebounder. So I'm curious here. He's a watch list player for me. The last two nights, 31.5 and 27.75 points per game. Lance Stevenson continues to play well, but Jalen Smith, I like Jalen Smith coming over here. This is a player here who has a lot of raw potential. Phoenix never really had an opportunity for me on the floor, but in 4 games with the Pacers, you see a nice roughly 21 minutes per game. He's going to chip in some double-digit points. The rebounding has popped off there a couple times. It looks like just in the last 7 days, he's averaging 21 points or 21 minutes, 12 points, 6 rebounds, an assist, basically a steal and a block, which is very interesting. That's roughly 23.6 points per game. So I'm super interested in the young talent, Jalen Smith, and see if he can get a little bit more work down the stretch, or if anything happens to some of the bigs there, Jalen Smith is going to get some work. And then Isaiah Jackson, Goga, Duarte needs to be rostered. We'll see what he can get worked back in with Buddy Hield now there. But he was having a great rookie year, and he's out with a toe injury, so we'll monitor him. But I'm very intrigued with the Pacers. Let's go ahead and keep it moving. See if I can find any other teams here that need a shout out. But Nets, Knicks, Kings, Bulls. I'm interested in the Kings. We could take a peek at the Kings real quick. I'm always interested in the Kings. In the last 7 days, you got Sabonis playing good. You got Fox. DiVincenzo, though, this is a guy here averaging 26.9 fantasy points per game. Look at his last 3 games here, all with the Kings. Minutes are going up. He's a 4-category player. He gets points, boards, assists, and steals here. A big 5-steal game against Brooklyn. But if he's going to be flirting with the upper 20s in minutes, like this is a player here in a 10 or 12-man league, going to be averaging 25, 20-some fantasy points per game. So I like DiVincenzo. Justin Holiday getting some run here. He's averaging 21 fantasy points over the last 7 games. Mitchell taking his seat back here. And then Rashawn Holmes almost just getting shut down. I don't know what's up with that. But we're going on about 17 minutes here. So if you guys are still with us, I'm going to actually pivot. We're going to kind of just pull up some of the best teams in place for next week. I'm going to say Boston, they have 3 games next week. We talked about some of the Boston players here. The Nuggets have 3 games next week. The Pistons have 3 games. Let's see here. The Suns have 3 games. So I'm going to type that all in there. Teams with 3 games. 3 games starting next week, Thursday. You're going to have the Suns. You're going to have, here we go. So you get the Suns, you're going to get the Pistons, the Nuggets, and the Celtics. So try to add, if you're still with me, try to add teams from those players from those teams. I think that's going to be very nice for your success next week, and then we'll reevaluate after that. But since I got you here, let's just see who the hottest ads have been over the last 7 days. Hottest ad, Shea Burst, Andre Drummond. There's Justice Winslow, Terrence Mann, Cam Thomas, Kobe White, Devin Vassell, Ayo Dosunmu, Brandon Clark, and all these guys are under 50% rostered, except for Ben Simmons, of course. As we get to Simons, of course, Simons is almost 60% rostered, but there's Josh Hart, there's Darius Bazley, OKC getting some players on the list here. That's good to see. Bogdanovich, Seth Curry, Steven Adams still under 50%. I'm not sure why that is so. But that's kind of the top of the players on the list there. So with that, I'm going to sign out. Thank you guys for watching. Enjoy the All-Star break. I think tomorrow night's game is going to be fun. The Rising Stars sophomores and rookie game. I'm excited about that. But enjoy the 3 points, enjoy the skills competition, enjoy all the dunks, and enjoy the game as well. Have a good weekend. Thank you guys so much for your time. Subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you on the other side. Peace.